everyone! So today I have a new Glitterature. This one's on the Scorch Trials, which was the sequel to The Maze Runner, which is a book that I absolutely loved, and I was so excited to get this book and read it. This book actually picks up exactly where The Maze Runner left off, which I really liked because I don't like it when sequels pick up 6 months later or a year later and you feel like you've missed so much story in between. And a lot of times in those books it will have flashbacks or something, but I just like it when the sequel picks up exactly where they left off, which is what this one does. In this book you find out that the world has been devastated by sun flares, and they've caused tears in the ozone layer, which have caused these major lightning storms, and even worse, it's caused this disease, this incurable disease that turns humans into barbarians. They kind of become zombies. They get worse and worse and worse. Their skin starts to get deformed. They start eating each other, and it's incurable. So it's a really awful disease called the flare. In book 1 you learn a little bit about Wicked, but in book 2 you learn a lot more about Wicked and what they're trying to do. They've pooled all of the world's money into finding a cure for the disease instead of taking care of the people that are healthy. They have tried to quarantine the cities with just healthy people, and they ship all the people with the flare off to like other areas to basically die, which is really horrible. And when you get the disease you become a crank. I kind of think of it as like they're really cranky people. They're kind of like these people-eating zombies that are running around with this incurable disease. It's kind of an awful world to be in. The first book is all about the Maze trial, and the second book is all about the Scorch trial. Basically, the Gladers that are remaining from the first book are put in the second trial where they're out in the real world and they have to trek across 100 miles of desert. They're told that if they make it across the 100 miles of scorched land in a certain amount of time, they'll get a cure for the disease. So of course they're fighting for their lives. They know they're gonna die if they don't make it to this safe haven in a certain amount of time, but the 100 miles is a trial in and of itself. It's awful. They actually go through this desert that has no protection. It's so hot. I would die just because I hate being hot. Like, it's like one of my weaknesses. Like, I can be freezing. You can stick me in the Arctic and make me like go across the Arctic, but stick me in a desert and I would be miserable. I just hate being hot. And then they have to deal with this absurd lightning storm that's the scariest thing I've ever read. It's like, the way the author describes it is terrifying. Lightning is scary to begin with when you're like out there with no cover, but these are like massive, like sun flared caused lightning that our planet has never seen because we aren't infected by like the sun flares. I like this book. I think it's different than the first book. The first book, the Gladers are in a really controlled environment, so they kind of can predict what's going to happen next. I think the punishment in the first book is that they want to get out of it because they feel so trapped in this very routine lifestyle, but you kind of know what's coming. In this book, you're basically thrown out in the real world. Well, you're not, as a reader. The Gladers are thrown out in the real world, and they have to encounter thing after thing after thing that you don't see coming. You kind of have no idea where the story is going to take you, but it definitely kept me really interested the entire book. I think that it's just as good as the first book, but in a completely different way. The first book, I think comparing the two, I liked the first book better, but I'm not saying that this book isn't just as good. I just think that they're different. This book is much more suspenseful. I normally read at night to like relax before bed, and I found myself wanting to stay up all night long to read this book because I just couldn't put it down. Like, it was a page turner, which the first one was a page turner too, and I think that's why I liked it so much. But that one was more, I was mentally curious. I was more like interested in figuring out the puzzle. I definitely think that this book lived up to my expectations after reading and loving the first one. I definitely had high expectations. The bar was set a lot higher with this book than it was the first one because I loved the first one so much. But I really enjoyed this book, and I've already picked up the third one, which is called The Death Cure. And it looks like this, and I'm so excited to read it, especially since the first two I loved so much. So I know I haven't even done a Glitterature haul on this. I just picked it up on its own because I really wanted to read it. So there will be a Glitterature coming on this one as well. And I love how on the cover of each one, you can kind of get a sense of where the book is going. Like on this one, there's very, well, if you've read the book, you totally know the scene. The scene is in the book, but it's basically a devastated city. So of course, when I got the third book, I was immediately looking at the illustration on the front, this snowy, abandoned looking building. And I just think that that is really interesting. Like, the first book was very controlled, it was indoors kind of. The second book is in a really hot desert, and then the third book looks like it's in a snowy, kind of abandoned, scary looking building. I definitely recommend it, especially if you liked the first one. I still think that if you are into this kind of book, you should go pick up The Maze Runner, because I really like it. And every single person who is into my Glitteratures who went and bought that book, I've gotten really good feedback back. I haven't gotten a single comment that was like, I went and bought the book based on your Glitterature and I hated it. I've been getting pretty good feedback on this. So I hope you enjoyed this Glitterature, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.